Be me Amelia, 27 years old, working as a junior marketing manager at a decent tech firm. Life is pretty good. I have my own apartment, a solid group of friends, and I am what most people would call conventionally attractive. I take care of myself, go to the gym, have a skincare routine that costs more than my monthly grocery bill, and I know how to dress. For the past few years, I have been navigating the dating world with a certain strategy. I picked it up from a mix of online forums, feminist blogs, and those viral social media threads that get shared around. The core idea was simple: never put all your eggs in one basket. In dating, that meant always having a roster. It was framed as female empowerment, a way to reclaim power in a dating scene that often felt transactional and skewed in favor of men. The narrative was that men are always keeping their options open, so why should not we? It made sense to me. It felt like a shield. So I had my system. There was the primary target, the guy I was actively trying to build something with. This was usually a man who ticked all the boxes on paper: successful, ambitious, very handsome, the kind of guy you would be proud to bring home to your parents. Then there were the backups. These were the guys who were always there. The ones who would text back within minutes, who would listen to me complain about my horrible day at work, who would offer to help me move a bookshelf or fix my leaky faucet. They were sweet, reliable, and in my mind, waiting in the wings for their chance. I never slept with the backups. That was a firm rule. It was about emotional validation, not physical intimacy. I saw it as keeping them on a low simmer, just enough attention to keep them interested, but not enough to lead them on. Or so I told myself. It felt like a game, and for a long time I felt like I was winning. My primary target at the time was a man named Julian. Julian was a senior software engineer at a rival company. We met at a tech conference. He was tall, sharp, had that effortlessly cool vibe, and a smile that could disarm a bomb. Our first few dates were amazing. Fancy dinners, witty banter, that electric chemistry you read about in novels. But Julian was elusive. He would text me intensely for a few days, then disappear for a week. He would make plans, then cancel last minute with a vague excuse. According to the online gospel I followed, this was classic high-value male behavior. He was busy, important, and had options. My job was to be the best of his options, to be cool, unbothered, and to play the game better than him. So when Julian would go quiet, I would turn to my backups. My main backup was a man named Liam. Liam and I went to college together. He was a graphic designer, incredibly talented, but in a quiet, unassuming way. He was not the kind of man who commanded a room, but he was the kind of man who made you feel like you were the only person in it when you talked. He was my go-to. Whenever Julian would flake, I would text Liam. "Hey, horrible day, need a vent session," I would write, and within seconds my phone would buzz. Of course, what happened? "Do you want to call?" And I would call, and I would talk for an hour about Julian's mixed signals, about my boss being a jerk, about how my favorite coffee shop was out of oat milk. And Liam would listen. He would offer advice. He would make me laugh. He would end the call with, "You know, Amelia, you deserve someone who treats you like a priority." I would smile, feel a warmth spread through my chest, and think, he is so right. But I would interpret his words through my own lens. He was right, and Julian needed to step up and realize I was a priority. It never occurred to me that Liam might be talking about himself. To me, Liam was the safety net. The reliable, comfortable cushion to fall back on if things with Julian or any other primary went south. My other significant backup was Daniel. Daniel was a friend of a friend. He was a high school history teacher. He was funny in a goofy, dad joke kind of way. He was kind, patient, and had this calming energy about him. We did not talk as often as Liam and I did, but he was consistently there. He would send me memes he thought I would like. He would remember I had a big presentation at work and text me good luck. Small things. A few months ago, I was having a panic attack about putting together a complicated piece of IKEA furniture. I posted a sarcastic story about it on Instagram. Daniel replied to the story almost instantly. I am an expert IKEA builder. Need a hand? 2 hours later, he was in my apartment, patiently deciphering the Swedish hieroglyphics. We built the bookshelf, ordered pizza, and watched a movie. It was easy. It was nice. As he was leaving, he paused at the door. Hey, I had a really great time tonight. I smiled. Me too. You are a lifesaver. We should do it again sometime. Maybe without the Allen keys, he said, with a hopeful glint in his eye. Totally, I said, already thinking about how Julian had finally texted me back while Daniel was in the bathroom. I saw Daniel's offer not as a date, but as him trying to level up from backup to primary. I made a mental note, keep him engaged but manage expectations. There were a couple of other guys in lower tiers of backup status, but Liam and Daniel were the main ones. My friends were a mixed bag. My best friend Chloe was my biggest cheerleader in this. She had her own roster. We would sit for hours analyzing texts, strategizing our next moves. We called it feminist dating strategy. We felt so smart, so in control. You have got Julian right where you want him, she would say. The fact that he disappears just means he is challenged by you. And when he gets insecure, you have Liam and Daniel to build your ego back up. It is the perfect system. My other friend Maya was less convinced. I do not know Amelia, she said one night over wine. It just seems exhausting. And a little cruel, these guys are people, not characters in your video game. I brushed her off. You do not get it, Maya. This is about protecting myself. I have been burned before, never again. And that was the truth. Before I adopted this strategy, I had my heart completely shattered by a man who I thought was my everything, only to find out I was one of 3 women he was seeing. That pain was a fire that forged my new armor. I was never going to be that vulnerable, that stupid again. The first crack in my perfect system appeared on a Tuesday. Julian and I had plans for Friday, big plans. He was taking me to a new restaurant that had a 3-month waiting list. He had been talking about it for weeks. This felt like a turning point. This felt like he was finally ready to make me a priority. On Tuesday afternoon, he texted me. Hey, something came up at work, a last-minute trip to the San Francisco office. I have to cancel for Friday. I am so sorry. Rain check soon. My heart sank, the familiar sting of disappointment. I immediately texted Chloe. He canceled, the San Francisco excuse again. Chloe replied, classic power move. Do not even reply to him for at least 24 hours. Let him sweat. In the meantime, activate a backup. Who is it going to be, Liam or Daniel? I felt a surge of defiant energy. She was right. I was not going to sit around and mope. I opened my chat with Liam. It was his birthday next week. I had been planning to send a simple happy birthday text. Now I decided to up the ante. Hey, so random, but I have a free night on Friday and was thinking of you. Want to grab a celebratory early birthday dinner. My treat, I wrote. It felt good. It felt like I was taking control of the situation. I was turning Julian's rejection into an opportunity to strengthen my safety net. I waited. A minute passed, 5 minutes, 10. This was unusual. Liam always replied instantly. I checked my phone again. The message was delivered. It was read. My stomach did a little flip. An hour later, my phone buzzed. It was Liam. Hey, Amelia, that is so sweet of you to offer. I would have loved that, would have, my brow furrowed. His next message came through before I could reply. But I already have plans on Friday. My girlfriend is taking me away for the weekend for my birthday. I stared at the word, girlfriend. Girlfriend, girlfriend, the word did not compute. It was like seeing a typo in the Matrix. It was not possible. I reread the message 5 times. My hands started to feel cold. Oh wow, that is amazing. You have a girlfriend since when? You never told me, I typed, trying to sound casual and breezy like this was just a fun little piece of news. About 4 months now, I think, he replied. Her name is Sarah. She is incredible. I have been meaning to tell you, but it never felt like the right time. I wanted to introduce you too soon. For months. I scrolled back through our chat history. For months. We had talked almost every other day for the past 4 months. I had called him multiple times late at night to complain about Julian. He had listened, he had offered advice, he had been my rock, all while he had a girlfriend. I felt a hot flush of something. It was not jealousy. It was not anger, it was humiliation. He had never been my backup. He had a whole life, a whole relationship that I knew nothing about. He was not waiting for me. He was living his life. The phone calls I saw as me keeping him on the hook, he saw as what? Just a friend venting. The thought was mortifying. I am so happy for you, Liam, I texted back, my fingers feeling like lead. We will definitely have to all get a drink soon. Absolutely, he wrote back. Talk soon. I threw my phone onto the couch and just sat there, my mind racing. The foundation of my perfect system, the very idea of the reliable backup, had just crumbled into dust. Liam, my most dependable, most loyal backup, was not a backup at all. He was just a friend. A good friend who had his own life. My ego was bruised badly. I called Chloe and told her what happened. She was indignant on my behalf. What a snake, he totally led you on. All those late-night calls, all that emotional support, he was probably just using you for an ego boost while he had a girlfriend the whole time. Her words were meant to be comforting, but they just made me feel worse. Was that what I was doing to him, using him for an ego boost? Maya's words echoed in my head. These guys are people, not characters in your video game. I pushed the thought away. No, Chloe was right. Liam was the one who was being deceptive. I was the victim here. He was my backup and he had abandoned his post. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Shaken, I decided to check on my other backup, Daniel. I scrolled to our chat. The last message was from him, a week ago, a funny meme about teachers on summer break. I had replied with a laughing emoji. I needed to reestablish my footing. I needed to confirm that my system was still viable, that Liam was just an anomaly. I decided to use the same tactic. Hey Daniel, long time no talk. I have a sudden free Friday night and was wondering if you were free to finally grab that non-IKEA-related drink, I wrote. I tried to make it sound casual, spontaneous. The reply came back much faster than Liam's did. Amelia, hey, great to hear from you. Friday, huh? Aw man, I am actually going to a concert on Friday. My buddy got us tickets months ago. Okay, a plausible excuse, no mention of a girlfriend, this was manageable, no worries at all, I typed. Another time then, have fun at the concert. Definitely, he replied. But hey, while I have you, I have been meaning to ask you for a favor. A favor? This was new territory. Backups do not ask for favors, they grant them. Sure, what is up? I asked. So, you work in marketing, right? At a tech company? Yeah, that is me, I replied, a little confused. Cool. Well, my younger sister Jenna just graduated with a marketing degree. She is super smart, but she is having a tough time getting her foot in the door. I was wondering if you would be willing to just take a look at her resume, maybe give her some pointers. I would be so grateful. I stared at the message. He was not asking me out. He was not trying to level up. He was asking me for career advice for his sister. He was networking. The time he came over and built my bookshelf, the pizza, the movie, was that just him being friendly? Was that him laying the groundwork to ask me for a professional favor down the line? The thought was chilling. It completely recontextualized our entire relationship. I had seen him as this sweet, slightly dorky guy who was secretly harboring a crush on me. A guy who I could call on when I was lonely. But what if he saw me as a contact, a useful person to know in his industry? Of course, I typed back, my mind reeling. Send it over, I would be happy to take a look. You are the best, Amelia, thank you so much, it means a lot, he replied. My carefully constructed world was beginning to tilt on its axis. Liam had a girlfriend. Daniel was using me for career connections for his sister. My backups were not backups, they were just men. Men with their own lives, their own motivations, their own primary targets. And I was not it. I was not even in the running. I was a friend to one and a networking contact to another. That Friday night, I did not go out. I sat on my couch in the dark, staring at my phone. Julian had not texted me again. No, how is San Francisco? No, thinking of you. Nothing. My backups were unavailable. My primary was MIA. For the first time in years, I was completely, utterly alone, and it was terrifying. My entire strategy, my entire shield, was built on the assumption that I was always in control, that I was always the one with the power, the one with the options. But I was not. I had no options, because my options were never really mine to begin with. They were illusions. They were men who I had projected my own desires onto, men who I had cast in a role without ever asking them if they wanted the part. I thought about Liam's girlfriend, Sarah. I imagined her. She was probably beautiful and kind and funny. She was probably everything I was not. She was real. Their relationship was real. I thought about Daniel's sister, Jenna. I imagined her young, ambitious, hopeful. Daniel was a good brother. He was looking out for her. He was not pining for me. He was building a future for his family. These men were not waiting in the wings. They were on their own stage in their own play. I was, at best, a background character. The next week was a blur. I went to work, I went to the gym, I smiled and nodded in meetings, but inside I felt like a ghost. Julian eventually texted me on Monday. SF was insane, so tired, we need to reschedule. I will check my calendar. I used to live for those texts, that little breadcrumb of attention that would sustain me for days. Now it just felt empty. I did not reply. The game had lost its appeal. The thrill of the chase was gone. All I could see now was the pathetic reality of it. Me, a 27-year-old woman, waiting for a man to check his calendar for me. I met up with Maya that weekend. I needed to talk to someone who would not just feed me the same old lines. I told her everything, about Liam and his secret girlfriend, about Daniel and his sister's resume, about Julian and his perpetual unavailability. I told her how I felt like an idiot. She listened patiently, without judgment. When I was done, she just looked at me and said, "Amelia, do you think it is possible that this strategy, this roster system, was never really about empowerment?" I looked at her, confused. "What do you mean it was all about taking control? Was it," she asked gently, "or was it about avoiding vulnerability? Was it about making sure you never had to actually risk getting hurt again, by making sure you never actually had to fully invest in one person?" Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought back to the man who broke my heart all those years ago. The pain of that betrayal was so immense, so all-consuming. I had sworn I would never let anyone have that kind of power over me again. And my roster was the result of that vow. It was my armor. If Julian rejected me, it did not matter because I had Liam. If Liam was busy, I had Daniel. I was never alone. I was never vulnerable. But I was also never truly connected to anyone. My relationships were a mile wide and an inch deep. I was collecting men like they were Pokémon cards, keeping them in a neat little binder, taking them out to look at when I felt lonely, but never actually playing the game with them. The thing is, Maya continued, you cannot build a real relationship with someone if you are always keeping one foot out the door. People can feel that. They can sense when they are just an option and not a choice. I thought about Liam. Maybe he never told me about Sarah because he knew I would not understand. Maybe he kept our friendship in a separate box, a box labeled friend who needs a lot of support, because he sensed that I was not capable of offering him real, reciprocal friendship. I thought about Daniel. Maybe he never made a move after that night at my apartment because he sensed that I was not really interested. He saw me as a friendly acquaintance, and when he needed a favor, he reached out, because that is what friendly acquaintances do. And Julian, I finally saw Julian for what he was. He was not a high-value male playing a game. He was just a man who was not that into me. It was that simple. His elusiveness was not a power move. It was disinterest. I had been so blinded by my own strategy, so desperate to win the game, that I had failed to see the most obvious truth of all. He did not want me. The realization was not painful. It was freeing. I had spent months, years, contorting myself into the image of the cool girl, the girl who was not needy, the girl who had her own life, the girl who was a challenge. But it was all a performance, and it was exhausting. That night, I did something I had not done in a long time. I deleted my dating apps. I cleared out my phone of all the half-hearted conversations with guys I was keeping on the back burner. And then I texted Julian. Hey, thanks for the offer to reschedule, but I think I am going to pass. I have realized that we are just not looking for the same things. I wish you the best. It was the scariest, most liberating thing I had ever done. He replied a few hours later. Okay, understood, you too. That was it, no begging, no pleading, no what did I do wrong, just acceptance. Because he never really cared that much to begin with, and that was okay. The next few months were a journey of rediscovery. I focused on myself, not in the performative, I am so busy and important way I had been doing before, but in a real way. I took up a pottery class. I started hiking on the weekends. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected because I was too busy managing my roster. I took a look at Jenna's resume. She was impressive. I gave her some feedback and I passed her resume along to my company's HR department. She ended up getting an interview and a few weeks later, an internship. Daniel texted me, overjoyed. Amelia, I cannot thank you enough. You have changed her life. It was nothing, I replied. She is great. She earned it. We did not make plans to get a drink, and for the first time that did not feel like a failure. It felt normal. It felt like friendship. One day I ran into Liam and Sarah in a coffee shop. A year ago this would have been my worst nightmare. I would have felt a spike of jealousy, of possessiveness. But now I just felt happy. Sarah was lovely. She was warm and funny, and she looked at Liam with so much love in her eyes, and he looked at her the same way. We chatted for a few minutes. It was not awkward, it was not tense. As they were leaving, Liam hugged me. It is so good to see you, Amelia. You seem different. I feel different, I said, and I meant it. My life was not a game anymore. It was just my life. It was messier, it was more unpredictable, but it was also so much richer, so much more real. I learned to be vulnerable again. I learned that true strength is not about building walls around your heart, it is about having the courage to tear them down. I started dating again, eventually. But this time it was different. I did not have a roster, I did not have a strategy, I just had me. I went on dates with men and I was just myself. I was not trying to be the cool girl. I was not trying to play a game. If I liked them, I told them. If I was not interested, I was honest. It was terrifying and it was wonderful. About a year after my big revelation, I met a man named Tom. We met in my pottery class. He was terrible at it. His pots were always lopsided and lumpy, but he had this infectious laugh and a kind heart. He was not a primary target, he was not a backup, he was just Tom. We started talking, we went for coffee, we went for dinner. It was slow, it was easy, it was real. One night we were sitting in his apartment talking. He told me about his past relationships, his fears, his dreams. And I told him everything. I told him about my roster, my strategy, my epic feminist dating failure. I was sure he would think I was a monster, a manipulative shrew. But he just listened, and when I was done, he took my hand. That sounds like it was a really lonely way to live, he said. A tear rolled down my cheek. It was, I whispered. Well, he said, squeezing my hand, you are not lonely anymore. And he was right. My life did not turn into a fairy tale. Tom and I have our ups and downs, like any couple. But our relationship is built on a foundation of honesty and vulnerability, not on games and strategies. Sometimes I think back to the person I used to be, the girl who thought she was so smart, so in control, the girl who used men as backups only to find out she was never their first choice. And I do not feel shame or regret. I feel gratitude, because hitting rock bottom was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to look at myself, to confront my own toxic behavior, to unlearn all the bad advice I had internalized. It taught me that real empowerment does not come from manipulating people or from protecting yourself from pain. It comes from having the courage to be open, to be honest, to be vulnerable. It comes from choosing one person and letting them choose you back. I was never Julian's first choice. I was never Liam's first choice. I was never Daniel's first choice. But that is okay, because I am Tom's first choice. And more importantly, I am finally my own.